So let's talk about the processes and patterns of evolution. Natural selection can only take place if there is variation or differences among individuals in population. An example of variation would be our heights. So I'm 5'5" and my husband is 6'6". That is phenotypic variation. These differences must have some genetic basis, otherwise they can't be passed down from one person to the next generation. So our heights are genetically related, but the length of our hair is not, right? If I have long hair and give birth to a child, that child will not automatically have long hair. Instead, this is a trait that I control. So my eye color is genetic, but my hair length is not. My hair color is genetic, but the number of teeth in my mouth at this moment is not. So non-genetic reasons can cause variation among individuals, but those reasons are not heritable. And if they're not heritable, then natural selection cannot apply to them. Genetic diversity in a population comes from two places: mutation and sexual reproduction. Mutation is a change in your DNA. As you learned presumably in the first part of biology, DNA is made up of nucleotides, and when you have a change there, you can have a phenotypic change as a result. The other source of genetic diversity is sexual reproduction. So if I made a clone of myself, there would be no genetic variation between myself and my clone. But if I were to make a child with another person, then our two sets of DNA would recombine and make a totally unique individual that was roughly 50% me and 50% my partner. That sexual reproduction is key to natural selection being able to act at the speed at which it does. Many mutations, many instances of sexual reproduction will not have like a critical effect on natural selection, but some will. And so that's why not everything is necessarily acted upon significantly, but it does all matter in the realm of natural selection. So we call a heritable trait something that's inherited that helps you survive and reproduce, an adaptation. So my ability to survive and reproduce because I can hear is an adaptation. That was a bad example. Don't judge me. I'm going off the fly here. But there are plenty of great examples in your book, like a snow leopard's thick fur is an adaptation for living in cold weather. A cheetah's fast speed is an adaptation for catching prey. Whether or not a trait is favorable depends on the current environmental conditions, and this is why climate change is so important. Our corn, for example, that we all eat, mostly in corn syrup in America, is adapted either by human intervention and a little bit by natural selection. Our corn is adapted for our current environment, but with climate change, as the climate heats up, as potential for drought becomes worse or excessive rain and runoff, the corn of this generation might not be as adapted to living in the next generation. And so keep in mind that natural selection is heavily dependent on the environmental conditions that any given organism finds themselves in. So something else to think about is why certain creatures look similar even though they might not be related. So there are two terms that you're going to hear. There's divergent evolution and convergent evolution. Di being like divide, away, convergent, we use converging in everyday language, so hopefully you know what that means, but it means with, right? So a divergent evolution might be something like a monkey and a human. We are different from each other and we are getting more and more different. Convergent evolution is when two seemingly different organisms are coming together and becoming more and more similar. So the thing that we think about a lot with this is like flight. So bats have wings and they can fly and they are mammals. Insects have wings, they can fly, but they are insects. And so they're pretty far apart on the evolutionary tree. And that's because they have the same function, but they did it separately, and that's okay, and that's just kind of a byproduct of natural selection by evolution. And so again, convergent means that they look similar, but they're actually from different ancestors. Divergent is when two animals from a recent common ancestor are moving away from each other. Okay, see you in the next video.